going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is Hustle and Grow. My name is Ed, and as you can see today, we have a special guest, Mr. Josh Galt. Josh, is your full name Joshua?
Come on, man. As my mom calls me Joshua.
I had to do it, man. I had to do it. When I thought about it, I led it to myself. But we get... I had to. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. But we got Josh Galt today. A lot of y'all already know him if you watch my channel, and if you don't, you'll get to know him through this quick interview. But Josh, welcome and thank you for coming and spending time with me today. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on, you know.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to do this with you. So I'm pumped. Let's give her.
All right, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, actually, man. But first, for the few people who may not have seen your content already or come across it, or for any new people that come to my channel but might not have come across yours, can you just give us a quick who you are, what you do, how you got into resale, that whole little background?
So, Ed, when you get me talking, nothing's quick. I just never stop.
Man. It's all good. It's all good.
I never stop. So, back in 1979.
Once upon a time in a
once
story.
upon a time. Make a short story long. When it really started for me. I was working in the city, so I was working in tunneling basically. So we put in like subway systems and underground rail systems and all that other kind of stuff. And the job was very demanding, and I was traveling a lot. It would take me an hour to get there, 3 hours to get back. I was working 100 hours a week, which sounds ridiculous, but I had a hotel room at the site, and my personal life was falling apart. So I had this period of time where I was like, I'm very supremely unhappy. The things that are important to me, I feel like they're drifting away. I'm losing them. And the demands at work keep increasing and increasing. And I need to figure out a way to get out of this. I can't keep doing this. It's not sustainable. So I started, I've always collected certain things and had interests. And I've always been on eBay since, the early 2000s or late 90s. So I started doing it part-time. And then like everybody else, I found Tech and Chris and all these people. And I started, thinking, well, maybe this is my opportunity to jump ship. So here I am. I started doing YouTube content because I ran into a lot of problems on eBay. I'm one of the worst eBayers out there. I've made tons of mistakes. So I was kind of looking for answers. So I started a live chat, and people started showing up, and they're like, this is your problem. This is this. The community welcomed me, and here I am. So 3.5 years later or so, I'm still selling on eBay. I'm still kind of doing YouTube, once a week or so. And yeah, that's kind of my story.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. So when you started reselling, had you been already reselling before you got on YouTube, or did you not start on eBay until you got the YouTube and started seeing the content?
Yeah, I did, but not seriously. So my first account was, I think, from 98, and I was really interested in coins, like historical coins. So I was collecting coins and like historical stuff. That was really my niche and my interest. So I was mostly buying, but I'd sell as well. So if the price of something went really up, I would sell. So I had a little bit of history with it, but I never thought that you could actually turn it into a full-time career where this is what you do.
Yeah.
You find like super cool stuff and meet super interesting people, and then you bring it online and you start selling it online. I just never thought of that as a thing. And then it totally switched my mindset. I'm like, okay, this is viable. I think I can do that and replace my income.
Now you're going through this in pieces and bits on your channel, but can you give us like just a whole storyline of, I know you just said you was working 100 hours a week, so that's enough to make anybody want to transition to something else. But can you give us that whole storyline from the time you transitioned, what you was going through, what your mindset was, and what was like the catalyst to make you be like, man, I got to do something else? And why reselling though? Because they're like, you could have just found a different job. It wasn't as demanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, construction. So construction is something I know fairly well. I don't know a lot of things well. If you open up the hood of a car, I just see metal and plastic. I don't know, I don't know what's going on. But construction was something I knew well, and I had done a construction business, and I failed at it. So I was very hesitant to do construction again because it's very capital intensive. The
Right.
people you hire, they got to know what they're doing. Like, I don't know if you've ever been around the trades, but it's a rough, tough, boom bust industry. So I was very wary to go back into that. And I guess for me, what it was is going to sound bad, but during the pandemic, I was watching people in the very beginning resell items that were related to that and making a lot of money. So I was kind of like, because what happened was, this is a really good question, Ed. I've never told this story before. But when I was working underground, we need all these things like Tyvek suits,
Right.
Self-contained breathing apparatus, NIOSH 99 filters, all these
Right.
things, because our guys are under there with chipping guns and creating dust and everything else. And when the pandemic went and happened, all of a sudden we couldn't get that stuff anymore. Like, that stuff was gone. So
Right.
I'm calling suppliers all over the place, and they're like, the best thing you can do is go onto eBay and buy this on eBay. So we went from buying boxes of this stuff or pallets of this stuff for $1,000 to getting 3 NIOSH masks for like $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it switched my mind. I'm like, these people are making a killing, and then what else can be sold on there? So that was really kind of how I got my start. And then, I had had enough. I don't get into like my personal stuff, but my personal life was kind of falling apart. We're going deep here, Ed. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. And included in the story, did you already have kids
Yeah, I
at
already
this
had
point?
kids. So
Okay.
my son was born in 2012, my daughter in 2015. This is all taking place around 2021, 2020, early 2020. So my kids are growing up. There were times where I would work 3 weeks and I wouldn't see them.
Right.
You can't explain it unless you're ever in that situation, the damage that does to your home life. Like, if you're not there, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
So I needed an out. I really needed an out. So all these things happening together, I was kind of like, what else can I do? And then I saw the t-shirt thing and all this other stuff. And I started going to thrift stores in maybe 2019. And, this stuff was cheap. I was buying rap tees for like $4 from the 90s, heavy metal tees for like $4. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. And at the time I converted my garage and I started selling and everything else. And it kind of just ballooned into what it is now.
Right.
And let me put this caveat out there. I don't consider myself super successful or anything in the reselling thing. I'm still learning. I'm like a baby when it comes to this. Some of these guys and girls are fantastic, yourself included. You're on multiple platforms, Walmart,
Yeah, thanks. I'm new just like you,
Amazon.
but thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, Walmart, and like, it's a little bit intimidating to me because you make a small little mistake, they're going to boot you, and like that, that concerns me to jump onto that platform a little bit.
No, we'll get into that for sure. One thing I wanted to ask about when you was going through that, you was talking about how you had been watching content during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And seeing people making all that money. I was too, of course, right? Because I had been in the vending, and then of course, that stuff that shut all that down, and so I had to do something else. And I remember how my sales was, during that time. So honestly, coming in at that time, you really got a full sense of what reselling was and how successful you could really be from then compared to now, and the amount of work that it takes. You know what I mean? Because I've seen y'all say this in y'all's podcast. You throw something up there at that time, dude, and it was gone. It was like nothing, right? And so,
Yeah.
what was that as time went on and those types of sales slowed down? Did that kind of shock you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh man, did you think something was wrong? Because we all had that like false sense of, oh, this is how it's always going to be. If we had just got started around that time.
Yeah. Like, in short, yeah, definitely. I remember anything I listed would sell, and then anything I listed would sell, but I had to cut the price. And now it was not everything is selling. And then you couple with, so eBay I can speak to because that's the platform I've used mostly. They started going through changes. They started seeing, and they're late to the party. They're the last one. It's 1 a.m. They're showing up to the bar and they're like, "Hey, we're here. We're ready to party." So now they want their cut. So things are on the downswing now. People are back at work. eBay's not rocking the way it was. Now all of a sudden they're raising fees. They're changing the entire platform.
Right.
The platform's saturated with items for the most part, in my opinion. So it was a bit of a wake-up call. And I had spent a lot of time. For me, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the most inventive person in the world. But one thing I can do is I can just park myself and work and work and work and work and work. So here I am pumping up anything I can find, putting it on the platform, but nothing's selling anymore.
Right.
So it was a big shock. And I was kind of looking for answers. So what's the issue? And it turns out there were probably 5 or 6 of them. It was like I came in at the mania when things were like rocking and rolling, and it took me a while to realize what was going on and what I needed to do and how, I needed to get myself kind of righted so that this business, was still functional.
And you had always kind of been in the whole collectible arena, right?
Yeah. So, I think, in my opinion, that if you have a hobby, I know what your hobby is, and I mean, you're incredible at that.
Oh,
So I didn't want to bring that up. Not everybody knows what I'm talking about, but that is right up my alley. But I think hobbies are like one of those things that really add color and vibrance to life. So I was a collector, and it's fun to try and find these things and look all over the place, and then you finally get it and you covet it for a little bit, and then you move it to another collector. So I've always been a collector. I've always been interested in history and art and all these things. I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to a city somewhere, I want to go to the museum and to the art gallery. I want to see this stuff. So it's always interested me, and this is kind of a perfect fit. And Ed, even for the difficulties, honestly, I'm enjoying it still. It's a lot of fun, and this community is great. The community has been very welcoming for the most part. The YouTube community, they brought me in. I came out of nowhere, and they're kind of showing me the ropes, and we're talking and we're learning and figuring it all out. So it's been a great ride so far.
Yeah, no, I know you got a pretty big store. So like, I feel like selling in the categories that you sell in, man, it's a very difficult category for sure, especially to make a living. Now, if you was just doing it on the side and you had a job, it's like, okay, whatever, I'll throw this up there, and when it sells, cool.
Yeah.
But to transition that and to make that into a business, definitely a lot of challenges there, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, do you deal with that, man? Like, I don't say necessarily wanting to quit, but have you questioned yourself, like, man, I don't know, maybe I should just, because I know you had some bumps in the road earlier this year, and you kind of did what you had to do as far as that goes. But how do you overcome the challenges of not only selling in a category that's mainly slow sell through, right? Slower sell through. You do got to sell volume, right? But how do you overcome those challenges? Like, what things have you had to do? What type of things have you learned to make that type of business model sustainable?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've overcome all the challenges yet. They're still a daily thing. But yeah, I think really, how do I answer this? I went, when I was really like through a bad time, which I would consider the beginning of the year, because when you have kids,
right,
you have responsibilities. And what I noticed on the platform was a lot of inconsistency. So $800 day, $90 day, $1,100 day, $50 day, $25 day, $1,700 day. And I felt it was to the point that I'm like, no matter what I do, at least in my niche, whatever I do, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm selling 30 one day, 50 one day, and 3 the next. So it really was wearing on me, because I was okay eating some of the losses, or not really losses, but reinvesting everything into the business for the first 3 years. But beyond that, I was thinking that my business would be sustainable. So it would pay for my lifestyle and everything in the business. And I was struggling to do that in January.
Right.
And it kind of led to a little bit of like, like you said, you think about it every night before you go to bed, and it causes you not to sleep. Like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this the right path for me? I don't know if I can make it another day or another week or whatever. So I think that eventually led me to branching out so that I could start doing a little bit more wholesale, some of the big lots. So that has definitely helped. And then maybe relying a little bit less on eBay. And, I think, Ed, let me know what you think about this. I think you're seeing that with a lot of eBay kind of YouTubers. They're saying that they're moving away from just eBay because they're feeling like it's not enough for them. Do you think that as well?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about. So we'll just go ahead and kind of pivot right into that because, let me see. So I had a couple things regarding that as far as that goes. Because I had heard you guys talking on the Profit Playbook podcast. Did I get that right?
You're the only one who can say it right. You're the only one.
I had heard y'all talking on there about Walmart, and then Walmart is allowing people to sell used goods right now. It's by invitation, and so one of the things I was going to ask was, do you see that aspect eating a large part of eBay's market share? But before I go to there, to answer your question, yeah, man, eBay, I think eBay's just dropping the ball. eBay still got a pretty good market share. I don't think they'll be going anywhere in the near future, but they're dropping the ball when it comes to the demographic of buyers out there. I mean, when you got, okay, so in order for Walmart to even say, okay, let's get into this used category stuff, they must see some opportunities there, right? They're not going to invest their money otherwise. And then you got the cheap stuff coming in from the Temus and the Sheins. Now you got Amazon wanting to compete with them. I feel like everybody's being competitive but eBay.
Yeah.
And so that lack of competitiveness is showing by them losing buyers, and now sellers are struggling, and so having to branch out and cross post or just totally like start listing stuff on other platforms. Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, depending on what you're selling, it might be a good idea to sell on multiple, but that's what it's different to do it because you want to, and then as opposed to doing it out of necessity.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's hard, man, on eBay these days.
Yeah, all these other platforms are turning their guns out. So they're, Amazon's doing their AWS and they're generating a ton of income from servers and all this other stuff. You have Walmart that's spread out all over the place. They're doing retail online. eBay decided to turn their guns inward. They're like, okay, let's fix up the platform and let's finance all these changes by charging our users more. So while everyone was focusing on gaining market share, eBay's like, let's clean house for a couple of years. Or at least that's what I think. So for us, it's been very difficult because we see the buyer base going down. So we're competing over fewer customers. While we see these other companies like Walmart and Amazon increase their market share. It's very frustrating as an eBay seller, or it was, to watch Amazon sellers, pulling down 7 figures, just scanning items. You're dedicating your life like 16 hours a day, in these niches, and you're losing traction.
Right.
So I think, and I think, just to kind of reiterate that this led to a lot of sellers, especially content creators. They're like, I'm going to go to Whatnot. I'm going to bring my audience over there where at least I can turn stuff over. And or someone say, maybe like you, where let's say like you do a lot of makeup and stuff, I think, right? Yep. Yeah. So if you get a box of stuff and you scan it, you're like, well, I can sell this on eBay, but it might take 6 months, or I can put it on Walmart or Amazon and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, the decision is easy, and then you can reinvest in your business. So I think that stuff has been going on. I think a lot of people, like a lot of the full-time eBay people, are kind of sitting on a prayer right now, hoping that things get better, because historically they have, but it's been very hard. I agree. Yeah, 100%. That was a really good point. I agree. It's been hard.
And I think, and of course, who am I? I don't get paid millions to run those companies, right? But here's what I think: if I had to give like Jamie some advice, like, okay, we know that Amazon, they raise their fees and they'll make up fees, and if your item is this big, whatever, they got their own fees, right? But you'll deal with it because of the volume and because of the fact you got access to hundreds of millions and billions of potential buyers. You'll deal with it. But it's just fees, right? It might go up by a percentage point here, percent there. Yeah, it adds up, but okay, cool. I think what eBay probably should have done is not change the algorithm in the sense of what they did with the promoted listings, okay? Forget the promoted listings. Don't do promoted listings. Keep your algorithm the same way it was as far as searching based on like best match. But you can add the advertising aspect, same way Amazon and Walmart do, where if a person wants more visibility, they can pay extra, right? And have sponsored ads. But it's not necessarily going to change the algorithm. It'll sit at the top and it'll say sponsored, right? And then if you want to increase the fees over time, you can a percentage point a year or two, right? I think most sellers would be okay with that, because now you put me in a position where if I'm not promoting close to 10% plus paying another 10 or 13% in fees, dude, I'm almost at 25% for something that might sit for 6 months. Like, all right, now if I was selling 100 of these a month, okay, whatever.
It's worth it. Yeah.
But like, if I feel like you're suppressing if I don't pay. Now I got to pay more because you claim that 16% or who knows what is the go-on rate. But I feel like they shot themselves in the foot. And yeah, in the short term, they made money on it. But I think in the long term, if they don't adjust that, it's going to hurt them.
Sure. And then you got Walmart is a big player. And they look over at eBay and they're like, hey, well, people don't look too happy over there, the sellers. That's a $10 billion a year market. How do we take that from them? Because Walmart wants growth, and they've already almost like achieved maximum growth as far as the retail stores are concerned. It's almost in every single town and city there's a Walmart. So for them to grow, they got to kind of feel out and go somewhere else. So I personally think that they are looking at what eBay has and they want to take it for themselves.
I mean, and that's what any business, right? They want to eat your lunch, and Walmart charges no fees to the seller as far as like monthly. There's no store fee. All you pay is for when you sell. When you sell, there's a percentage based on your category and everything. That's all. Now that may change in the future, which it probably will. But at the end of the day, I mean, you bring stuff over there. Competition is low, depending on the category. Fees are probably half as much. And I feel like if you're a serious, this is the thing that gets me sometimes with eBay sellers, right? I think a lot of them shoot themselves in the foot because they're not serious enough. You know what I mean? Like when you should have, I'm not saying you need an LLC, but for opportunity, man, you should have at least some sort of business formation. You should have some sort of sales tax. Like there's just so many opportunities that you are missing out on if you don't have those things, because a place like Walmart where there's growth possibilities, you can't get on there unless you got a sales tax license, right? So why not get it just for the opportunity aspect of it? You know what I mean? And that's the thing that kind of frustrates me sometimes about eBay sellers, man. It's like this myopic view of reselling and selling in general, you know?
It kills me when I see people saying, I have some great items, but I'm not going to list them because I'm out of listings, free listings, or stuff like that. Or they're like, I'm not getting a store, and you're like, but the store is only like $30 a month, that kind of stuff. So no, I agree with you. I mean, if you want to do this full time, not as a hobby, do it right. Set yourself up so that you have the best tax strategies. Set it up so that you have an LLC or even at least a sole proprietorship, and take advantage of all the tax benefits. Like, especially if you're part-time, people need to realize if you sell part-time, yes, you might get taxed on your income, But think about all the stuff you can write off. Like, literally use your imagination. Those are the benefits to you taking the risk of starting a business, which is what this country was built upon. Small business. Still, the majority of businesses out there are small business. So you're encouraged to start a small business through these tax breaks. Take advantage.
Yeah, no. And so, look, along that line, though, I got a question. So, do you think that full-time reselling is really a pipe dream that us YouTubers promote, or do you think it's like a reality? Do you think that people hype it up on YouTube more to make it more glamorous than it really is, or do you think this is realistic? Like, what would you tell somebody coming in who's like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna get into this reselling full-time"? What would you say to that person? And like, act like you talking to me. I'm telling you that, yeah, Josh, I'm about to start full-time reselling. I'm gonna leave my job, man. Yeah, I'm excited, man. What would you tell me?
So this is a really good question, and really, really good. So somebody told me that a really good entrepreneur or a really good business person is someone that you just tell them, you got to tell them over and over again that it's a bad idea and not to do it, and they do it anyway. And if they do it anyway, they're ready. So I would tell them, no, don't do it, because you're going to face all these obstacles. It's going to be extremely difficult. But if you're going to do it anyway, then, I mean, Walmart is a reseller. Home Depot is a reseller. Lowe's is a reseller. Like, all these companies, they don't make their own stuff. Manufacturers make it, and then they sell it at a higher price, and they there's a bit of an arbitrage there. So, yes, I think you can make it work, but it's extremely difficult, in my opinion. Let me know what you think about this, because you do see a lot of content out there showing how easy it is. I found this for $5 and it's sold for 500, and they hold it up and it's kind of fuzzed out or blacked out. But that's not the reality. The reality is like grinding, deal making, having a little bit of charisma, making lots and lots of mistakes and doing this over and over and over again until you find your lane. Once you have your lane, you travel down it, you try and dominate it, and then you start building a moat around yourself so that other people can't compete against you. That's what I see it as. So this business is as difficult as my failed construction business. I just hope now that I have a business mindset that will help me succeed, as opposed to the failure that I experienced in 2005.
Yeah, no, and I think a big difference between having a job that's demanding and running your own business and having nothing to fall back on is, if you go to that job and you just decide to slack that day, you're gonna get paid the same. Yeah. If you're running your reselling business and you slack, you're not getting paid the same. So it's like, you can do that. So if you're used to being a slacker, that's something you're gonna have to work on. But I mean, just to answer the question too, if I was the things YouTube makes things look easier. I think from my experience up to this point, man, one, most importantly, I would tell a person to make sure you got enough money saved up to get yourself at least through the first year. If you're just starting out, you should probably do at least a year anyway. You need an identity, I think, as a seller. I said this in my videos before. You need an identity. It doesn't have to happen right away. Play around with stuff. Play around on platforms and with different types of items, categories. Settle in the area you like. You like collectibles. I like health and beauty. And then once you do that, start to build your identity there. Start right there, because then you'll start to figure out what you can and can't sell, what the policies is on those things, what's the best places to source from. You'll start to build relationships around. It's very hard, I think, in my opinion, to build those relationships and to do those things. Not that it can't be done, but when you're all over the place, it's like you spread yourself thin. And so it's like, it's like, what's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
That's right. Well, yeah.
Well, if you look at the top successful people in the world, a lot of them, one of the recurrent themes is that they say they focused on one thing. Kobe Bryant talked about this in the interview. Yeah. All of his time and energy, basketball. He said, I didn't care about nothing else. Yeah. Nothing else in life mattered. And I feel like to be successful at whatever, you have to have that attitude. Nothing in life should matter except what you're doing right now, and it's very hard to do it if you are focused on too many things at once.
Yeah,
So,
and
go ahead.
Whatever you're selling, somebody was successful at that.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to these people, you're not like, this person isn't more intelligent than me. They're not. They might not come from. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't come from better circumstances than me. But what you see in them, to your point, is tenacity, this resolve, this like belief in themselves, and they just, like a dog with a bone, they just keep going and going and going and going. And then to circle back to what you were saying earlier, one thing I've noticed with my own business versus my career is that when I was doing the tunneling, I had unlimited money. So basically, we don't care what it costs. Tell us what you need and we will pay for it.
Right.
Unlimited labor. If you need 100 guys or you need 10, tell us and we'll give it to you. And unlimited resources. So all those things were available to me. But the one thing I didn't have was time. So your deadline is fixed and you have to make the deadline. As an entrepreneur, no money, no resources, no manpower, lots of time. So it's the whole thing has flipped. So that's kind of, it's really a juxtaposition, because I could call upon, if I was in trouble and I needed something done, I could bring 50 guys in to get it finished.
Right.
You can't do that. There's no way I can do that. So if I make a mistake or a big buy, I can't just bring in all these people and be like, hey, take care of this for me. So it's changed my perspective immensely.
No, that's a good point. And to close that segment out, that makes sense. And so if a person's just starting, that's why it's good to have resources to fall back on as you build something. So it's like you put yourself ahead of the game if you do decide to kind of go full time. So I think for me though, the thing I underestimated most was the amount of okay. So and I kind of almost lost this line. So I realized that what it takes to do this part-time or as a hobby and be successful is a totally different mindset from what it takes to do
100%.
full-time as a business, as something that's going to sustain your business and your lifestyle. Two totally
100%.
different mindsets, two totally different attitudes, two totally different types of focus. And I think people conflate the two, and that's where they start to struggle sometimes. What do you think about that?
I agree. So full-time on eBay, first of all, I'm not going to absolve the platform of its issues. Something's not right, and it's been not right for about 2 years. It's changed. It's even changed from when I was doing it in the late 90s and early 2000s. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or if they're, creating something new. So it is what it is, but that's changed. But let's say you do $100,000 in sales.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a great number on eBay, 100,000 in sales, but maybe you spent 20,000 on product. Maybe 30,000 goes to eBay. Now you're at 50,000. Now you have to reinvest another 20,000 in product. And then, you have all your other costs and everything else, but $100,000 might only be 30,000 profit. If you have a family, 30,000 income that you have to pay tax on is not a lot. So, you really, I think, and this is something that I was guilty of as well. You see people saying, I'm making $200,000 on eBay.
I know, right?
And you're like, well, that's great money. And if I can do this instead of doing 4 hours in traffic, that's awesome. And then when you start really understanding everything that's going on, you're like, no, there's a whole part of the story that's not being told here.
A huge part. Yeah.
A huge part. Yeah.
A huge part. For sure. Yeah. No, there's to do even $100,000 is not easy, man.
No,
it's not easy. So look, I know that you have been talking about, now tell me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. You have started to sell some things on Amazon, right?
No. So I just hate it. I don't know what it is, but I go into like Walmart and I start scanning things using the Keepa app. And my whole like body is like, I hate it here. I don't like this.
Oh, so it was retail arbitrage. Is that the reason you had opened up the account, to do retail arbitrage?
I opened up a Poshmark account, never used it. Amazon account, never used it. But what I have been doing is a lot of wholesaling. So when I buy these big lots, I'll pick out what's good for me and good for eBay, and then I'll liquidate the rest of it.
Mm.
Or, you know, and that sounds like I'm kind of screwing people over, but you know, sometimes you buy a big lot and there's like a 1960s car in there.
Well, and not only just that, but I mean, what's not useful for you, somebody else might be. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Ed, what am I going to do with like lawn equipment and a tractor and a car from the 60s where you got to change, you know, figure out the VIN and you got to get a flatbed and all this, fix it up. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at with a car. So for someone, it might be worth it. And I take the little things out that work for my business. They can have the whole thing, you know, for whatever they feel it's worth. And that kind of side of the business has been working and I've been enjoying it. But I haven't done much on Amazon, even though I know there's a lot of opportunity there. And it might be a mistake on my part. I'm willing to admit that.
Do you see yourself, because I know selling the type of goods you sell, there's really not, Amazon definitely wouldn't be the platform for that. But I mean, how long do you give eBay before you have to be like, all right, I can't sell this type of stuff on eBay and sustain this? Maybe I should like really do this seriously on a different platform.
Yeah, that's another really good question. I think it's a numbers thing. So right now, no matter how I feel, there are days where I love eBay. It's really bipolar for me. I'll have a great day and I'm like, I feel great. And then there are days where I'm like, I can't take this anymore. You know, because you feel like you can never break out. You have these huge days and then these really bad days, and you feel like you just can't break out. But if I look at my overall numbers, I'm only down 3% from last year. And the wholesale business has gone up 50%. So would you know, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I don't want to say, okay, I've had it with eBay, like enough's enough, because I'm personally frustrated when the numbers don't really support that. So that's kind of where I'm at. So if my numbers draw down 50%, 40%, and I'm putting in this much work, then I'm like, okay, something seriously is wrong here. But 3%.
So would that 50 or 40% have to be for the whole year? Like when you get to the end of the year and you look and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Something like that.
May I was up like 70% or something. I don't remember what the numbers were. Then June I was down 80%. July I'm kind of like even.
Yeah, so yeah.
It's hard to do it over a short time span, and you don't know what they're doing, what they're changing. I definitely know that they're up to something. Like that part I'm 100% positive of, but it's very, I will concede this. It's difficult to grow a business on eBay because you're reliant on data to make investment. If my sales were constantly growing month over month over month or year over year over year at a certain level, if I did 3 years and I'm up 30% year over year every single year, then I'm like, okay, I can reinvest. I'm on the right path. But when things are very up and down all the time, you become very scared to invest money in your business because it doesn't feel safe. Does that make sense? Like just your entrepreneurial gut instinct. So when I buy now, even though the stuff that I'm selling has historically sold, I don't know if it'll sell in a day or 6 or 8 months. And that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. It doesn't give me a lot of confidence when I have an item up for $40 and I see another seller sell it for $200 over and over and over again. And I'm not getting the sale. It doesn't make any sense. So that kind of stuff, it makes me a little bit apprehensive.
No, that stuff doesn't make sense with eBay, man. I take the advice sometimes that Tekken Sports has said. He says it multiple times, but he talks about we're not just reselling for a day, right? So don't pay attention necessarily to today's numbers and tomorrow's, but you got to look at for the year or even for the quarter. That kind of gives you a better picture for sure. And like you said, if you look at the end of the year and you're down 30, 40, 50%, but you've been doing the same thing, then it's like, all right, there's a big issue here. Yeah. But if you look at, you might have a bad quarter and a half or two. And who knows, the last 2 quarters, might pick up. So we don't resell just for a day, but it is hard,
he
man.
knows.
It is hard to like stay focused when things are not consistent.
And he knows he's put up what 250,000 items in his life. He's got a group of 2,000 people, and I'm sure that group is full of people like, this is nonsense. What's going on? All this other stuff, feedback, blah, blah, blah. Like, he hears it all, you know, so I'm sure he knows all the ins and outs of it. But in the real world off eBay, the amount of work that you put in and the changes that you make generally have results that you can build upon.
Like
I don't feel that is the case on eBay.
Yeah, no, there's usually a correlation between effort and reward, right? Exactly. Usually the more effort you put in, a lot of times you get even more reward out of it, right? So look, to this point though, I heard you guys talking about this on the podcast last week along this line. So y'all was talking about eBay's relationship with its sellers. Right. And I mean, I don't want to rehash all the things and all the topics, but the question I had, because I was thinking about this when I heard y'all, I was driving and listening, and I'm like, does eBay have an obligation? Because Barrett has said, he talked about how cold Amazon is as opposed to eBay, even with eBay's customer service issues, and he's right, but there is customer service on Amazon. But does eBay have an obligation to have the type of relationship you guys were talking about where, because I think it was you was talking about getting with people like Mr. Kevin and some of the other big YouTubers and using influencers, which I don't think would hurt them. They could have some sort of influencer program like Amazon. I think that wouldn't hurt. But do they have an obligation to go that far? And if so, to what extent? Because we pay them. We pay them a store fee. So you do got an obligation to provide some sort of customer service. For them to take away the call like they had done and all of that, that's just BS, number one. But to what extent really do they have an obligation to, interact with the sellers? I mean, you provide the basic customer service, but do they have an obligation to go beyond that, or what do you think?
I think it's super complicated because for a number of reasons. So the short answer for me is that eBay has no obligation to anyone other than themselves. But I think it would, when we're talking about that on the podcast, we're like, spitballing, how can we do some problem solving here? Because you see across the board on message boards, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you want, comment section, people are dissatisfied with customer service, and eBay has taken steps to replace what customer service was 5, 6, 7 years ago with its new iteration. And people aren't happy with it, myself included. And I think the point for me is that if you were running, let's say you were running, I don't know, like a fridge business, you sold fridges, and you were reliant on a fridge supplier to sell your fridges. And I was like, Ed, how do you like your supplier? You're like, I don't know. I never spoken to them in my life. They gave me a number, but then I got to trick them to get them to call me back. And then when they do, they don't actually know me or anything I do. That's not a great, comfortable position to be in when you're fully reliant on them. And, for us full time, anything can happen. I could get suspended tomorrow for a misunderstanding. Who do I talk to? What do I do? It's over. That's very precarious when you are, dependent on them. So I don't think they have to build these programs. They don't need to get influencers on board or anything else. But what I do know is Walmart and all these dogs at the gate are ruthless. So, sorry, are we still going?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah, okay. So all these dogs at the gate are ruthless. So I've had Whatnot reach out to me, Mercari reach out to me. I don't even sell on Walmart. They reached out to me. So they're aware that there's a problem and they're going for it. And here we are, the influencers saying, please, eBay, we love the platform. Can we please speak to you? And they're just like keeping everyone at bay and not doing anything about it. So, for both parties, I think it would benefit. And I think it would benefit the entire platform if they reached out not only to influencers, but to like collectors, those niche markets where there's certain things you can only find on eBay now, but that might change in 5 years. So I love eBay. Ed, I love it. I do. I love the platform, and I love buying and I love selling on it. And I want the best for it, but I'm super, super concerned.
No, I get it, and I wrote down because this was a thought that I had before, and I didn't want to forget it. Because to this point, and this is one of the things I was thinking when y'all had this conversation. Because y'all was talking about the reseller community on basically on YouTube, and I thought to myself, is that even a large enough demographic for eBay to even care about? When we talk, because when you immerse yourself in this type of content, you think that I feel like you'll think that the amount of people who actually sell and make money on eBay is bigger than it really is. Like as far as having a voice that will be able to go to eBay and be like, yeah, we need this and that. But if you think about it, the majority of resellers probably represent a small percentage. So like if you think from eBay's perspective, when eBay's thinking about the type of sellers they want to attract, the way they want to build their platform and things like that, is the YouTube reseller the type of people that eBay is even going to really listen to for the most part?
Well, maybe not listen to. I mean, they certainly don't listen to, but I will say that the YouTube influencers had a very, very large impact on things like thrift stores, which is a multi-billion-dollar business. Thrift stores changed their business models because of YouTube resellers. I am 100% convinced of that.
True.
You can't go there and buy the stuff that you used to buy 5 years ago. They got put on blast. They know now. I think that the competition in thrift stores and to get these items, I think that was largely through YouTube influence. And I also think that some of the trends that really got popular was through YouTube influence, like vintage shirts, sneakers. The sneaker thing was what went crazy. I saw sneaker influencers that had millions and millions and millions of views. So, I do think it has an impact. Now, I don't know if its time has passed or not, but I certainly do think it has an impact. At the very least, reaching out, and I'm not talking about me, but if they were to reach out and just secure some of these influencers, even if it was a younger crowd and it's a new thing that I don't even know about right now, that's like kind of getting cool or whatever, it's hardly any money for them. It's like $3 million, whatever it is, $4 or $5 million, but it could be a huge influence over whatever the next trend is. So that's why I think it's important that they secure this, because if they don't, I think the other ones will. All those the guys and girls and the sellers that are over at Whatnot brought them there, and Whatnot now is a major competitor. They brought them over. Those sellers didn't just go there. I remember the emails coming of Whatnot, courting the sellers and bring them over. So.
No, and that's why it is a very nuanced type of conversation, right? You can't help but ask these questions. Even when you're talking about the influencer thing, you got Amazon influencer, Walmart started one, Whatnot. I guess for eBay it would be a little different, but you still can have influencers that can still do things like reviews. Oh, I got this eBay haul. Like, I mean, find ways to market this. I mean, what is it? Who's your marketing department head, right? Like, seriously, y'all can't figure out some way to go get some young face, handsome or pretty, doesn't matter, to do some hauls and to start putting the word out. Hey, I got this, to let people know again, not just, oh, we authenticate shoes or you can get your car part. Dude, there's people looking for all types of stuff, not just car parts and expensive watches. You know what I mean? Start having people show that, hey, when you got a broken item or something, I don't know, instead of buying it new, you can get the part on eBay. Search eBay. We got the part you need. Cheap. Save money. Like in the economy that we're in, why wouldn't you market that way, in a way where save money, search eBay, we got the part you're looking for, not just car parts. You know what I mean? Something like that. That's what I'm thinking.
Get Taylor Swift or Ice Spice or somebody to sell some of their clothes on eBay. Do like a live auction. And then all of a sudden, like, all these people come in who have never been on eBay before. You'll have millions of people. They'll crash the site.
You would. Yeah.
And then if they spend, if you get 10 million people and they spend, $10 or whatever, that's an extra $100 million of revenue every single year coming onto the site, and word of mouth and everything else. I don't know why they don't do it.
Yeah.
So every Sunday in the middle of the afternoon, I turn on AM radio because there's a German radio station and I can listen to the local news and what's going on with the old people in German. I heard an eBay ad.
Did you really?
This is a radio station that's geared to like the 80+ audience.
Right.
So it made me think, like, is eBay being taken for a ride by their whoever they're hiring for advertising? They're just like paying, I don't know, $100 million, and these guys are throwing it on some
giving them junk traffic, same way eBay do us.
Yeah, they're saying, I'll call them out. I'll put them on blast for that. Is somebody like really taking them for a ride and putting them all these crappy AM stations and like,
nobody even listens to AM for real.
Nobody listens to it. No, nobody does. It's taking them for a ride and just cashing out. So I don't know what's going on there, but I know that in their conference call, the CEO said that historically advertising didn't work for them and they didn't see a good result. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, but I wonder, we all got an idea of type of advertising they were doing. I feel like that's being disingenuous. Maybe that type of advertising wasn't working, but you didn't try the other type, some of the stuff that we're talking about. So I don't know how much I buy that. You know what I mean?
I don't buy it either. No. So yeah, maybe don't get like Gene Hackman, and he's like the face of your product. Maybe go after something that's like up and coming and trend setting, and invest money there. So I don't know. I
also do got to think, if they are pushing eBay up motors and all that, there got to be something. I think I heard you say this too about them knowing the numbers, right? They know the numbers. They know where the majority of their revenue is coming from. But I still feel like that a big part of your business because you only really market that part and you don't really market the other parts. Like, I feel like you need to give everybody else a fair shot when it comes to marketing. And then when I think back in history, like, I haven't seen them do that in a very, very long time. You know what I mean? I
think eBay Motors is almost a separate company from the rest of eBay.
It seems so, like, right?
Yeah, and it just seems like it's this Ed is going to get me in trouble.
Do it.
But it seems like a better run version, like a mirror site that's better run. They're investing in advertising. Now I'm watching, they're putting out all this content, videos, how to change your rad hose, how to change oil, all this other stuff. So they seem to be really investing in eBay Motors, and eBay.com seems to still be like, hey, how can we create another promotional campaign that we can kind of like get people on board and they can pay an extra 3%. And I just see a boardroom filled with suits, hey, how do we squeeze an extra this and that? But they're not turning their guns out and going after market share, which everybody else is. So I don't know. They got to know what they're doing, but I don't know what they're doing.
I don't think that they know what they're doing, man. Honestly, I feel like eBay's identity, I think they're trying to look. To me, eBay is good for the hard to find stuff, the collectibles, used, right? When you need parts for something, your blender, right? You just need the picture. You don't need a whole new blender. So that eBay got, but you don't let people know that. And yeah, older people like us know it, but do the young generation know that? They'll need stuff one day, right?
And don't discount how out of touch a corporation can be with what's actually happening. I think that's part of it too. So what is going on maybe in boardrooms and meetings and it might be very out of touch with the way we feel and what we're seeing from our vantage point. And the best example I'll give is when I worked in tunnels, we had a fatality on site. And it was pretty traumatic to a lot of guys because, you know these people and you end up spending more time with them than what you do with your own family because you're always there. And the response from the corporation was to have a pizza party. And in the pizza party, they had psychologists. so that the psychologist would go around with a piece of pizza and say, hey, would you like a piece of pizza, and tell me how you feel and everything else. But that is so out of touch, because you don't know how those guys are and how they operate. That, that's not what you need. And I think that any mature, developed corporation that has these like multi-layered HR departments, I think they operate in a similar sort of premise, and they might not get it no matter how loud we scream into the wind. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense, man. So out of touch, so detached from reality.
Yeah.
Right? The reality is these gentlemen just lost a friend and a comrade, and you messed up, first of all, by even having a pizza party. Nobody wants to be at a pizza party.
Nobody wants to be at a pizza party.
Yeah, seriously. Like, no, I get it, man. Yeah, no, yeah. I agree with you on that. So do you think that one day, can you see a future in which eBay purchases Whatnot and integrates it into eBay so that you can do your buy it now and sell your stuff on either, and it updates? I think I would like that. What do you think?
Here's the thing. So if you go back in history, do you remember when Craigslist first came out? And Craigslist was dominating, and then there was another site, Kijiji, that came out, and they were sort of competing for market share. And eBay was like, okay, we're going to buy Kijiji, and we're just going to kill Craigslist. So they bought Kijiji, thinking that now they're going to dominate the classified ads, and they're going to like online classified ads, and they've got eBay, and they're just going to dominate. But they just let it die on the vine. So it ended up that Kijiji died. They just invested nothing. They bought it. They let it die. And then eventually Craigslist died as well. So that's my only thing with eBay. If they were to buy Whatnot, the lawyers, the corporation would come in. Okay, we bought it. Now we got to vet the process. We only got to let these kind of people on, and we want these people to say this. We want those people to say that. Blah 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 blah. And I just feel like they'd screw it all up. So
I think you might be right.
They got a bad reputation for just doing that kind of stuff, taking in these companies, and then they don't do anything with them, or they just let them die. So I don't know. I'm sure the owners of Whatnot, if it's a private company, I don't even know. I think it is. I think if they got the right price, they would sell it in a heartbeat, and they don't care what happens to it after that. So I don't know.
I think about it, what you said. Maybe they shouldn't buy it because they might mess it up. Yeah, they might mess it up. Hey, tell me 3 things this year that you did to change your business that really helped with your efficiency.
So I don't know. One of the answers I'm going to give didn't help with my efficiency, but I chose to look after myself a little bit more.
Yeah, I know. I've been seeing that.
So rather than just working all the time and kids saying, hey, can you throw the ball with us? And be like, no, I can't. I got to work. Just doing it and working out and eating right and making sure that I get at least 8 or 10 hours of sleep every single night. So that's the number one for me. And I think that has allowed me to operate at a better level mentally and have the ability to kind of make decisions and deal with stress better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The second thing is to really focus on what I know. The distractions of, I was taking in a lot of stuff where people would say, you got to sell this. And then I'd get into it and I just end up losing money because I don't know what I'm doing. So really just, I'm in my lane. I know what I'm doing. And just focusing on that, and then just trying to refine that and do the best that I can. So if this doesn't work out, the stuff I sell, unfortunately, I got to go down with the ship because it's what I know best. It's what I know best. I don't know a lot of this other stuff, and it would be a major pivot when the store is this big. And I think the third thing is that really, eBay isn't the be all and the end all. And if you expect it to be, you're really setting yourself up for some disappointment. So try and find some things that can bring in some income on the side, so that if you have a week of 0 sales, which I had when I was on vacation, basically not quite 0, but pretty close, it's not the end of your business or the end of the world, So I hope that sufficiently answered what was another good question. You're throwing good ones out there. This is, I think, probably one of the most intense, like really deep questions. I'm really enjoying this. I can't believe we're already at 59 minutes. Like,
I know, I just saw that.
We're just blasting through. It's completely blowing my mind with this.
Yeah, no, and I ain't gonna hold you too much longer, but I appreciate you answering these questions. one more thing. We're gonna do a little 10 round or 10 question speed round too. Couple of them you kind of already talked about, but we'll see. The last thing, kind of really though, and I'll even answer this after you. What's the and this is just for this year, not your whole journey. What's the toughest thing you dealt with? And then, like, when you went through that thing, kind of give us a how you dealt with it and how that has made you better, not just as a person, but as a seller. Like just this year so far.
So I think the toughest thing for me was, if I were to look back and say, I'm sure there's a better answer for this, but Josh, what is the toughest thing you've dealt with this year? For me, it was not having my business where I needed it to be. And I really felt like a failure because, I'm not just taking myself on this journey. I have a family, I have a house,
Right.
I have cars, all this stuff. So when you hit those kind of bumps where you're like, I don't know that I can do this anymore, there's no one there to help you. There's nothing. It's all on you. You made this decision. So I think that kind of bottoming out where you hit fear and desperation and all this stuff, and you don't know what to do and you don't know where to turn and no one can actually help you. It was like kind of a dark place. So I've told this story before, but I went up north. We went to a friend's house. I couldn't sleep. I was up all night. I got into my car and I drove to a coffee shop, which was closed. I had the police pull me over and they're like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. They like pulled up to the side of me. I'm like, I don't know. It's 3 a.m. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just not in a good place right now. And they're like, you have to leave. And I think that was really bottom for me. And from that point, I was like, I am going to take 100% control. I don't feel healthy. I feel stressed. I feel like I'm working all the time. And I'm like, okay, what can you control? You can control your health. You can control how you feel because that's largely related to health. You can control how you interact with your family and how you deal with their sort of things. And then one by one, I started getting it all. And what I noticed was that this allowed me to tackle the bigger problems a little bit better.
Yeah.
And honestly, there was a little bit of a pile-on effect. I don't know if you remember my social media, but kind of when the sharks smell blood, everyone piles in and they're like, this is great TV. Let's see what happens. So that kind of stuff was going on. And I think that it was that's what I think was my biggest hurdle was really bottoming out. And I've bottomed out many times in my life. And then, being like, okay, people are relying on me, and I'm saying it this way to segue to you because I know what yours is, but people are, are relying on me. No one can help me, and I have to be there for them, and I have to continue. There's no turning back. I need to do what I need to do. So,
well, yeah, for you that took a lot of courage as far as what you had went through earlier this year because, and like you said about the feeling of failing if things ain't going right. Anybody say they don't deal with that, just lying, and I can't even talk to them no more. But it's even more worse for somebody like you or I because you're in the quote unquote public eye, right? So there's people out there who can't wait to see you fail. They can, see, I told you, and I knew this, and just all of that. So it's just extra stuff that you don't. So for you to be courageous enough to say, listen, I got to take a couple steps, not even back, but I just got to veer off for a second because I got some other things to deal with. There's just too much going on. I'll get back to this in a minute. That was commendable, man. Forget what y'all talking about. Y'all not paying my bills, taking care of my kids. I got things I need to address, and this is how I'm going to address it. And I'll get back to this as soon as I can. You know what I mean? So, but that's courage, and you didn't try to hide it from people.
I was doing a live video every single day. So,
that's brutal, man.
People would see, what you're going through. And if you didn't have any sales that day, you didn't have any sales. You can't hide the fact that you're not having sales. And I'm not going to anyway, but everything was kind of mounting. And I just felt, I was like, this is not why I left my career. Cause now I'm in the exact same spot where I'm working all the time and I'm spinning my wheels a little bit. And, so that's kind of was where I was at. And I got to say, because I know, you're not going to bring this up yourself, but one of the things you said, Ed, that really stuck with me was that you were saying, you know, you have your family and you went through tragedy this year, which totally changed your life. But you said, you know, yes, it bothers me. And, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, I can't take it, but I got to be there for them. You know, I'm still the father, the husband, and everything else. So I have to I know that's on my shoulders. So I got to show up every day and do this. And it, you know, I was like, that's a class act. And that can go to business too. Sometimes business, like it's a mess and there's a huge problem, but you got to show up, make it through the day, and eventually it will get better.
Yeah, you can't figure it out if you don't show up, right? And that whole situation, if anybody watching it don't know, I want to say it's probably been a month or so now ago that our house was one of 4 houses that was caught in a fire. There was an abandoned house that had been sitting there forever, abandoned. I don't even know why, but don't get me started on that. There was like 2 or 3 squatters. The lady I don't know if they argued, whatever. She set the house on fire. I think they attempted to try to put it out. She just kept resetting the fire. So of course the guys left. And by the time thank God we realized it was about 11:40. I remember, man, because I was going to lay down. I'm like, all right, I got to get up early. And then my stepson came in and was like, hey, there's a fire in the back. I go in the back. And all I really saw was embers blowing. I heard grass pop and I seen yellow light. I didn't see the fire. I'm just like, we got to get out of here. So we get out. And by the time I get out, I look. And when I seen the flames, I'm like, oh my goodness, I said it right away. I said, somebody set that house on fire. That wasn't no accident. So of course that house burnt down. Our neighbor's house burnt down. Our house was damaged enough that we couldn't move back in. The roof part and the attic and stuff burnt. And then everything else, you know, all the water damage. Yeah. We got a lot of our important papers and stuff out, but thank God nobody was hurt, even our neighbors. And you know what, man? You know, I'm standing there. My wife, she's crying. The kids is crying. And I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, right?
Yeah.
I've been through a lot. I don't know, man. I feel like initially I was just like I'm a type of person. I try to find solutions. So I'm just trying to go through my head, like, if this happened, then what? Like, I'm trying to think ahead of what we're going to do, but I really don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. I really don't know. But I can't be like, you got to project strength to them, especially if they're breaking down.
Yeah.
And if I break down, I can do it later somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But for the most part, I feel like the worst thing I kind of dealt with was, and look, the support between the reseller community and just our local community was crazy. And it would have been much, much more difficult if we didn't have that. So, and that's why I made the video and I was like, thanks, but thank you ain't enough for all the help and support we got. There just ain't enough thank yous for that. So that was a big part. It wasn't even just me or no, but you draw strength from people, right? And when people step up, you can get strength from that. And it gives you even more encouragement to, you know, stay focused. But man, you know, going through that recently, and just trying to deal with everything, even more so, Josh, it just lets me know, like, dude, anything can happen at any time, and you can't afford to be, excuse my language, you can't afford to be bullshit. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You got to put full effort in everything. I lost my mom and my grandma around the same time, not recently, but around the same time. It was probably like a couple years apart. And so this was the worst thing that I've had to deal with since that. And my kids, they haven't really been through anything really, you know what I'm saying? So they haven't had any tragic situations to deal with. And I look at them and I see how they grow up and how I'm raising them as opposed to how I grew up. I had a dysfunctional upbringing, had a lot of things going on I ain't gonna get into, but it's different. It's different. And I want them to have it that way. I want it to be better for them. There's just certain things they shouldn't have to go through and deal with. But at the same time, I need to be able to teach them, hey, look, this happened, because I had this conversation with them, John. I said, look, man, this happened, but we'll be okay. And I gave them all the reasons why we'll be okay and why they can't, like, yeah, you lost this, but we'll get it again, and why they need to be thankful and grateful. So I don't just use it like, oh man, this happened to us type of thing. You know what I mean?
That's why I say you're a class act, because even what you just said there, you know, oh, I had a dysfunctional upbringing, but the buck stops with me. I'm the last generation. I'm not passing that down. That's a lot of accountability, because, you know, there's still everything from that, but you're like, you know what, we're not bringing that. That's it. That stops with me.
Yeah.
And I think that takes a lot. You know, it takes a lot, because there are people that, most people are not like that. So, you know, and for everybody out there, when you lose everything in a fire, you know, 3 hours later, your daughter's like, I'm hungry. Well, I don't even have my wallet. You know, I don't have anything. Or what about my dolly the next day, or my teddy bear, or, you know, what about this? What about my drawing, and all these things that are important to them, because that's a small part of the world that they control. Is there are a couple things that they have.
Right.
It's all gone. You know, and you start all over again. And I had friends that lost everything to a fire, and it was just, you know, it just keeps happening over and over and over again, where you're like, oh, you know, these photos that we had, those are the only photos we had, and they're gone. And it, you know, it's kind of like, it just doesn't stop. But
yeah, no, and our last like 4 kids, I think that's the only house they had ever been in.
yeah,
They was there for like 8 years, so they hadn't even known another place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they grew up there, so everything they had was there.
Yeah,
and they only got a very small portion of that stuff. But as far as how that affected me, even though it's been in a recent, very recent, near future, it happened recently. It just even more so, honestly, just like I guess the best way to say it, man, it just gives me more resolve to know, like, life is going to present you challenges, man. You can't, like, when people cry about small stuff, even the eBay stuff, like, there's so much more that you could be dealing with. And why is this what you choose to put your energy into?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Why would you let this discourage you? It's not even worth it. Just try to figure it out. It should come up in the form of a solution-based conversation or whatever. Yeah, it's okay to vent, but like, focus on what you got, appreciate what you got. But it just makes me want to work that much more harder, so that God forbid something else happen, I'm fine. But also, if somebody comes across my path or something happens, I'm in a position where I can help somebody, and my family can extend that same type of support to somebody else. So, you know, that's kind of like how that has affected me up until this point, where we'll be good, man. And I thank God everything is fine, but I'm just working even harder. And honestly, I just want to be able to be in a position to help somebody else, because, you know, a lot of people helped us out.
And, you know, positivity goes a long way, because positive people surround themselves with other positive people. Successful people will surround themselves with other people who are ambitious or successful. But if you're, you know, negative and it sucks and I hate this, and you get into the hate and anger and all that other stuff, then that's what's going to find you. And, you know, that's a hard thing to break away from, especially, you know, when it starts piling up, because, you know, different circumstances. But I've also gone through some like pretty difficult things. And, you know, I have a choice to dwell on it and make everyone's life miserable, or deal with it and move on. And I think dealing with it and moving on is the hardest thing to do, but it's the right decision. And I think it in the long run, it leads to growth, my opinion. I know that sounds very like
that's
pie in the sky yoga instructor, but I do believe that.
No, man, that's my attitude. I'm a cup half full type of guy. I'm one of those people who believe it's your perspective that dictates the outcome of any circumstance or situation, not the situation itself. Because if you'll never find a good solution if you're not looking for it. If all you got is that negativity coming in and all you listening to is the negativity, how are you going to see the good? So it's a battle. It's easier said than done. It's a battle sometimes. Sometimes it's easier, like you said, it's hard sometimes. But if you can do that, everything will always work out better in the long run, because your attitude will surround you and bring you across those opportunities, across those people, and things just have a way of working themselves out, man.
Yeah,
having said that, go ahead.
Even when you're sourcing and they're like, hey, I got this extra pallet of stuff. I'm going to give Ed a call. He's a really nice guy. He's really, whatever. That, that stuff happens because they would rather deal with someone like that than be like, this guy is miserable all the time and he's a pain in the butt. They won't call that person first. So it creates other opportunities.
They do, man. They do.
Yeah.
Opportunity, that's what they say, man. Success is when opportunity meets preparation. That's why you always got to be prepared. You always got to be learning. You always got to be advancing your skills, learning new things year by year. Don't be afraid to try new things because you never know what opportunity. You got to be ready to accept that opportunity if it comes your way. You know what I mean?
100%. I agree. 100%.
All right, man. You ready for the 10-question lightning round?
Okay, we're gonna lightning round. Okay, yeah, we can do it.
It's pretty basic. All right,
okay,
so this first part is gonna be like an either or thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Number one, quick flip or long hold? What you prefer?
Long haul.
Long hold? Yeah, it makes sense. High volume or high profit?
High profit.
Yeah, goes with the long hold, right?
Yeah.
Listing or sourcing? Which one would you rather be doing?
Listing.
Really?
Because my category requires a lot of research, and I just find these most fascinating, crazy things. Like, I won't let this go on for too long because, that's not what the lightning round is about. But I've had to do a lot of research in New Hampshire, or about New Hampshire over the past month. Man, that place sounds incredible. I want to climb Mount Kearsarge and Mount Washington like this,
Right.
so I really enjoy that part. So I would say listing. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Garage sales or storage units?
Storage units.
Yeah, you do the storage units. I don't like. I tried storage units. Not for me, man.
Not for you.
Vintage art or modern art? Because I know
Vintage.
you do art.
Vintage. I love realism. Realism is my thing.
Yeah.
I can't get into the contemporary stuff. Yeah. But you got to answer that one too because you're an artist. Do you like classic or contemporary?
I like classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly. There's some contemporary art that I like, but
you would choose
I really love
like a Rembrandt where it's like really like focused, it looks real, and someone has some confusing expression on their face over like someone splattering stuff on a canvas.
For sure. Every time. Yeah. All right. So this is going to be more of a yes or no for these last few. Okay. eBay will be around 10 years from now. Yes or no?
Yes.
A shell of its former self, I bet.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself one day changing business models?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That day could be tomorrow.
It depends on what's going on, right?
Yeah, it does.
Is delist, relist worth it?
Oh, I don't know. The jury's out on that one.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Live selling will only continue to gain in popularity.
Yeah, it's fun. I was wrong about that.
Peak yet? You think it's reached its peak now, or you think it's going to keep going?
No, it looks like a lot of fun. I was wrong about that one. I thought it was a flash in the pan, but it's actually a lot of fun. It's very engaging. I really enjoyed it. So I think it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And last one. Will Josh Galt be reselling 5 years from now?
In some form. Ed, my dream is to become wildly successful at this and move into something that's a little less labor intensive and a little more passive. Although each year seems to be a little bit more grueling. So the fantasy world is no, but the reality is yes. I will.
You know what? I'm with you on that one, bro. I think in 5 years from now, I wouldn't mind doing it in some capacity, but I would be thinking I would be also have something else going on.
Like a vacation rental thing would be really, really nice, or some sort of passive income. Just take the edge off a little bit would be nice. It really would be.
Yeah, this is always, and I've always said this. This is reselling has been more of a stepping stone. I don't know exactly where I'm stepping yet, but
you can see the end. You can see where you are, but you can't see the steps in between all the time.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, man. Thank you again. I appreciate you spending time with me, man, and having this conversation. I'll make sure I put a link if anybody doesn't know who Josh Galt is or where his channel's at. There'll be a link in the description. Check him out. A lot of good information, a lot of
Well,
experience.
I just want to say, Ed, thanks for having me on. I had an absolute blast. This was a lot of fun. I found it really engaging. So, this was incredible. So, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. And was this a banger?
It is a banger. We got to do. Can you do it without good?
Here, let's go ahead. Do it again. I'm on the right side.
No.
All right. All right, man. Thanks a lot, man. And I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.